Okay, we're on Math 2, Unit 11, Lesson 8. Some homework help here for you guys, doing factoring by grouping. Some of this we've already been doing in previous lessons, but perhaps your teacher did your lessons a little bit out of order just to get you this concept first. That's possible. So here we go. The idea here says to find the greatest common factor of the first two terms and the greatest common factor for the last two terms of each polynomial. So we're not actually factoring, we're just finding the greatest common factor as we go through these here. So for the first two terms, I have 6n and 3n. Those both have a 3 in common. They also both have an n, and in fact they have 2 in common there. For this part here, the thing they have in common is they both are factors of 5 and only one n, so that's it. Those are my two factors, and that's my answer, leaving it just like that. Next part, between 12 and 36, they both have a 12 in there. 12 times 3 is 36. And they both have two z's, so I can write z squared. On this part here, they both have a 4 inside of them. So we're just really breaking up in two parts and saying, what's the factor? Number 3, same idea. I have a 9k third and 45k squared. 9 times 5 is 45, so they both have a 9 in them. And they both have at least a k squared. And over here, they both have at least a 2 in them. For number 4, I have 11 and 33. 11 times 3 is 33, so they both have an 11. And again, a to the third, a squared, so they at least have an a. Over here, 8 times 3 is 24, so they both have an 8, and that's it. Down here, what do they have in common? I have 2 and a 5, and that's what I have there, 2 and a 5. Lucky me with a 2 and a 5. Well, what do they have in common for 2 and a 5? Not too much there. So the 2 and a 5 they don't have in common, but they at least have an f squared, so that's okay. And over here, what do they have in common? We have not a 4, but we have at least a negative 2 in common between those two parts there. A little different there. All right. And this last one here, we have in common, we have at least an 8 for both of them and a d squared. And over here, we have at least the number 3, and I can make it a negative 3, and that works just fine too. Why is it negative? Well, I could have a negative 3, and I can take it out, and I can make it negative 3 times negative 3 gives me a 9. And I do negative, I think I put it negative there to go with the leading term there, which, yep, leading term. So when I go back to the next section, I want to make sure I keep that together. So that'll combine to there to make that work. All right, so that's why that looks a bit like that for now. Let's factor the next expressions using what we've learned. I'm going to do some more here. So we look at, first of all, the first two terms. All right, and I see what do they have in common. They both have a 2x squared in common. And what is left over? 6 divided by 2 is 3 with an x. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I have a 3x minus 2 right there. And for this part, I'm going to add, I have a 5 in common for this part, and that's it. 5 times 3x gives me 15x, and 5 times negative 2 gives me that one. Again, what I'm aiming for here is hopefully to have two matching terms. I take the parts that are left over, 2x squared plus 5, and I group them together. And I group them with my common factors there, 3x minus 2, and that's all I do for that one. Okay, let's look at number 8. Same idea again. One thing you want to start looking at, which won't happen here but will soon, is you do want to start looking, do any of them, do all four terms have something in common? If that's the case, you could take something out right away. This doesn't have that, but just keep that in mind. We'll get there in a second. So we'll look at the first two terms and then the second two terms. For the first two, it has a 5q squared in common. What's left is a q for this one, and 40 divided by 5 is a negative 8. So that q minus 8 is what's left there. And over here I have a negative 4 is what's there. And I have a q remaining here. And to get from negative 4 to 32, it'd be a minus 8. So again, my q minus 8's match. So I take my little extra terms, 5q minus 2 minus 4, and group them up, and put my matching ones down as 1, and I'm good for number 8. Let's look at number 11. Number 11 is one of the ones that has a common term throughout the whole thing. These are all, 3 is a factor of every one of those leading coefficients. So I'm actually going to begin by taking the 3 out of the whole thing. So I have 18 divided by 3 is 6y to the third minus 2y squared minus 21y plus 7. So all I'm doing is I'm dividing each one of these by 3 to see what's left. 6 divided by 3 is 2, 63 divided by 3 is 21, 21 divided by 3 is 7. Now I'm back to what my original steps were, finding factors here. I don't want to forget about that 3, so I'll come back to that at the end. So in common here, they each have a 2y squared, and what remains is 3y minus 1. Alright, and over here I have a minus 7 in common. Keep the same minus there. Keep that there. And what's left is 3y minus 1. Alright, I'm not done though. I have to keep writing this down there, okay? I'm just going to cross it out for now, alright? And move my thing down here. So to combine this here, I take my loose terms, 2y squared minus 7, and group them up. And then I take my common ones there, 3y minus 1, and I got to bring down this 3 right there. So the answer to number 11 is 3 times 2y squared minus 7 times 3y to the first power. Alright? So again, not a lot of space on these, so if you write big or messy, you're going to run out of room. You might want to use another piece of paper. Alright, number 16. I'll write over here off the side because I do have some space on this one. I notice these are all even numbers, so I'm going to go ahead and factor a 2 out of the whole thing. And rewrite this as 2 times 25h to the third minus 20h squared plus 30h minus 24. So that's my new expression there. Make sure I got everything right there. Perfect. Now let's break up that and break up that. I have 2. And I'm going to go ahead and take out a, well, let's not worry about the 2 for now, just for a second. Let me back up a second. Otherwise I'll lose that guy. I'll come back to that one in a bit. So let's see what I have here. I have a 5h squared in both of those. And then what I have remaining here is a 5h minus 4. 5 times negative 4 gives you negative 20. Over here I do a positive, and what do they both have in common? This is 6 times 5, 6 times 4, so we're going to say they both have a 6 in common. And what do I have left? I have 5h minus 4. Again, those match, which is kind of our goal. So now I'm going to combine my loose terms, 5h squared plus 6, and then 5h minus 4, and then bring down my 2 from the original factoring. So I have 2 times all of that. And that's number 16. Over there. Let's look at number 17. Last one on this side. Again, these are all even numbers, so I'm going to go ahead and factor out the 2 to begin. And that leaves me with 2 times 12b to the third minus 48b squared minus 7b plus 28. And at this point then, I will then go back to my normal thing, looking at the 2 terms, first 2 and last 2. 12 and 48, and the b's, they have a 12 in common plus a b squared. 12 times b to the third, what I'm missing, just one more b to make that work there. So I'm looking and saying, what am I missing in order to make that? Here, I have the b squared. So what am I missing? 12 times 4. So, but it'd be minus 4, so 4 here. I have my minus sign. You just bring that down. And these both have a 7 in common. 7 times 1, and 7 times 4. So I'll put the 7 on the outside, and what I'm left with is b minus 4. Combine my loose terms, 12b squared minus 7, and then combine the matching ones, and then bring down the 2 from the beginning to be done with that part right there. Alright, let's flip it over to the back side where we have a few more samples we're going to do together. Looking first at number 19. Number 19, I have nothing in common all the way across. Even numbers there, but that's odd, so I can't pull anything out to start with, so I go back to just looking at the first 2 and last 2. For the first 2, they both have a 7 and an s squared in common, because this is 7 times 7, this is 7 times 2, so that's where I got the 7 from. And I look at what's left. I got rid of a 7, so I still have a 7 left over here, plus an s. Over here I got rid of 7, so I'm still left with a 2. So I'm left with 7s plus 2. Over here, this is 2 times 7, and this is 2 times 2, so they have a 2 in common, which leaves me with a 7s, and leaves me with a 2. Again, combine the loose terms together, 7s squared plus 2 times 7s plus 2. And that's number 19. Number 20, another one where when we look at this here, one thing you might look at is, okay, well, I can start to figure this out. I don't have anything in common to start off with. I do the two terms here. So for 60 and 48, this is where you want to be a little careful here. You could look at this and say, well, this could be 6 times 10 and 6 times 8. It could be that, all right? If I did 6 and 10 and 6 and 8, though, I'm going to end up with something a little bit different than what I need to have. Because look over here, for example. Over here I have 5 and 5 and 5 and 4. So I know on this side, I'm going to factor out a plus 5, 5p plus 4. That's what's going to factor on that second part there. If my goal is to get a 5 and a 4, and I notice here, if I take the factor out, over here, no matter what I do, I don't end up with a 5 or a 4. So because I won't have that same 5 or 4, I'm looking for something that kind of matches on both sides here. It tells me I probably picked the wrong factors on this side. Okay? So I'm going to pick some different factors besides 6 and 8s and 10s. I'm going to go ahead and pick 12 times 5, and notice it gives me a 5, and 12 times 4, and it gives me my 4, doesn't it? So this is something you might figure out by trial and error. If you did the 6 and 10 first, and then 6 and 8, you might find out it doesn't work. That's what happened to me the first time. I went, hey, that doesn't work. So I had to back up and think it through a little bit and go, okay, I need to make sure that they all have some common things, because in the end, I need to come up with that common term. So I take out a 12p squared from both of them, and then I'm left over here with 5p plus 4. And now we're back to what we normally do. Combine my loose terms, 12p squared plus 5, and 5p plus 4. All right? So it's interesting. Number 25. Number 25 I wanted to do just because the numbers aren't in common, but the letters are. They all have a k. So we can take a k out to start with. This becomes 45k to the third minus 9k squared plus 10k minus 2. And then you're back in business to your regular stuff. So what do they have in common? 45 and 9. I'm going to go with a 9. K squared is in common. 45 divided by 9 is 5k, because that was 3 minus 2 is 1. Minus, it's the same term, 1. We're going to do a plus because that's a plus there. And we have a 2 in common between those ones. And what I'm left with is 5k minus 1. So to combine those up, I'm going to write it right here just for now. I end up with k, got to bring the k down, times, loose terms, 9k squared plus 2 times 5k minus 1. Number 25. Number 26, the same idea. They all have at least one b. In fact, they all have two b's. So I can actually take a b squared out of the whole thing, and I have 18b to the third minus 3b squared plus 30b minus 5. That's how I start that off there. Now from that, I can go ahead and pull out what I need to pull out. So we go first terms, second terms, and this becomes a 3b squared is what I can take out of both of those. 18 divided by 3 is 6 with a b left over. That's the same term, so minus 1. Over here, I can take a 5, positive 5, out of the whole thing. And I have 30 divided by 5 is 6 with a b and minus 1. Again, it all works together. I have my single term there and my loose terms. Oops, I ran out of camera space. Sorry about that. So back to where we were, my factors are there. So let's combine my loose terms. I have 3b squared plus 5. I have my b squared from the beginning. And I have my common one, 6b minus 1. So that becomes my answer for number 26. All right, I hope that helps. Good luck.